The chamber lights flickered as Ambassador Zulthar of the Creel Dominion clicked his mandibles in disbelief. For iridescent eyes blinked asynchronously, each failing to process what the administrator had just reported. You're telling me these humans just arrived and ended a 3-century war in 5 hours? Well, muttered Administrator Zeevil, adjusting the ceremonial folds of his data robe. Technically, it was 4 hours and 47 minutes. But who's counting? Zulthar's ocular ridge twitched in frustration, the Creel equivalent of an eye roll. Explain. Now, Vor, the Council's chief strategist, a gelatinous cephalite whose translucent limbs danced over a hovering holoscreen, sighed. You know how we've been fighting the Neveric Dominion for, well, forever? Yes, yes. The Devourers of Suns, Blight of Civilizations, yada yada, get to the part where logic dies. Vor gestured. Right. So these humans show up last week, piloting ships, so primitive our scanners thought they were asteroids wrapped in tinfoil. I believe the term they used was rust buckets. Zulthar leaned forward, skeptical. The ones held together by something called duct tape. That's the one, Vor chuckled. Their fleet commander, a woman named Captain Andromeda Reyes, takes one look at our entire tactical archive and laughs. I mean, full body, tears in the eyes laughing. During a war briefing, Zulthar's carapace flushed dark blue with irritation. And this is funny. How? Oh, just wait, Vor said, his chromatophores pulsing with mirth. She looks at 3 centuries of military doctrine and says, and I quote, "Y'all are overthinking this so hard it hurts. Y'all." Zulthar's translator unit stuttered. Regional dialect, Southern Terran. Context, affectionate collective address. Confusion level, extreme. Then Vor continued. She requests a full inventory of our quantum torpedoes, the location of every Neveric supply node, and, he paused, the entire series archive of something called Looney Tunes. I do not follow, Zulthar admitted flatly. Neither did we. Vor gestured, and a schematic appeared. 12 human ships surrounding the Neveric Armada, each positioned with zero regard for protocol. She calls it Operation Roadrunner, places her fleet in all the worst tactical spots, intentionally violating every known strategy doctrine. Zulthar stared, but the Neveric shield grid is impenetrable. Only in 3-dimensional space, Vor said, smiling. Humans fought in 4. That's impossible. Nope. Quantum tunneling. Space-time origami. When we asked their engineer how they managed it, he just said, we grew up on Star Trek. And read it. Zulthar looked ready to molt. But the Neveric psychic temples, the battle meditation chambers, how did they overcome those? Vor's smile widened. They broadcast Looney Tunes directly into the chambers. You know the one? Bird escapes coyote, again and again. Apparently the contradiction of cause and effect gave their monks cluster migraines. You're telling me humanity defeated the greatest military threat in the galaxy with cartoons. That, and something called Twitter screenshots. Zeevil added helpfully. Apparently the Neveric hive mind couldn't handle the concept of getting ratioed. It shut down entirely. Zulthar sat in stunned silence. Where are the humans now? He asked finally. Zeevil motioned to the viewport. Outside, a group of human officers floated in low gravity, teaching juvenile scaril hatchlings how to play volleyball using a glowing orb and a defunct plasma mine. Oh, still around, he said. They said something about galactic cultural enrichment and introduced us to this thing called pizza. Zulthar slowly turned back to the screen. So, they end a war with memes and cartoons, and now they want a party. They're hosting something tonight called a space kegger. You're invited, by the way. Captain Reyes insists. She also mentions something about having enough tequila to make a black hole dizzy. Zulthar's translator let out a low, defeated hum. I think I need to lie down. Understandable, Zeevil nodded. But do it soon. They're about to start karaoke. Apparently, it's mandatory. From the corridor beyond, the opening chords of Sweet Home Alpha Centauri echoed. An upbeat remix performed by a multi-species jazz band. Zulther's ears twitched. Is that the supreme oracle of the Connebula singing? Oh, yes. They taught him the chorus an hour ago. Fast learner. Zulther straightened his robe with new resolve. Very well. We shall engage. For diplomatic reasons. Of course. Zeevil's body shimmered with laughter. Of course, Ambassador. Diplomacy. And what is this? Bohemian Rhapsody I've heard whispers of. You're about to find out. And so, exactly 5 hours and 12 minutes after humanity first made contact with the Creel and Neveric forces, the ambassador of the Creel Dominion found himself floating weightlessly, awkwardly attempting to headbang, while a human taught him the correct form for air guitar. The war was over. The galaxy would never recover. The war room fell silent as the holomap displayed the impossible. 12 human ships, count them, 12, had encircled the vast Neveric armada, a force so massive it blotted out the local stars when it moved. And, somehow, impossibly, the humans had won, not in months, not in days, in 4 hours and 47 minutes. Ambassador Zulther stood rigid, his upper mandibles twitching. These were the ships, he asked, voice low. Yes, Ambassador, said Vor, struggling to keep the smirk off his jelly-like face. The UHS Conundrum, the UHS Mild Concern, the UHS Karen, they all played their part. Karen, Zulther hissed. They named it after a mythical Terran warrior known for requesting managers. Vor replied, a cultural reference. Zulther looked as if someone had tried to upload a philosophy program to his immune system. Begin playback. The chamber lights dimmed, and the holoscreen lit up. Battle footage appeared. Human ships diving headlong into Neveric formations, spinning in ways that violated several known laws of inertia. Music blared over comms. Something called sabotage by the Beastie Boys. One human vessel, presumably the Conundrum, spun vertically through a cloud of Neveric drones while yelling, yeet, over open frequencies. Zulther flinched. Is this standard Terran communication? They call it morale-boosting banter. Vor explained. Apparently, if you yell confusing things at your enemies mid-battle, it disrupts their targeting. And it worked. Oh, it worked too well. The Neveric command AI tried to simulate the human emotional state called unhinged confidence. It immediately overheated and began screaming in binary. The playback zoomed in on Captain Andromeda Reyes, standing atop the bridge of the UHS Karen, sipping a neon-pink beverage from a bendy straw. Her command style was described in the after-action report as chaotic neutral, with a side of jazz hands. Explain the strategy, Zulther growled. They called it Operation Roadrunner. Vor said, flipping the holomap to tactical view. Instead of attacking the shield matrix head-on, they exploited the fourth-dimensional soft points, those weird corners of space-time the Neveric never bothered to fortify. That shouldn't be possible, Zulther said. And yet, Vor gestured. They used quantum tunneling to pop in and out like cartoon characters. Their engineer referred to it as, while E-Coyote physics, and said they were inspired by gravity only working if you notice it's missing. Silence fell. I have no words. Oh, it gets worse, Vor said, grinning now. Captain Reyes instructed her communications officer to beam full episodes of Looney Tunes into the Neveric Psychic Lattice Network. Why? Disruption. You see, Neveric battle meditation relies on emotional harmony. The humans flooded it with cartoon logic, repeating failure loops, exploding birdseed, anvils from the sky. Their psychic core entered a feedback spiral, trying to process why the predator never wins. Loony, feedback-induced implosion. Zolther blinked, stunned. This is weaponized absurdity. Exactly, Vor said. And just when the Nevrik fleet started to recalibrate, the humans hit them with Twitter screenshots. Mostly arguments about pineapple on pizza. Zolther flinched again. They overloaded a hive mind with hot takes. Some of the Nevrik even agreed to disagree. The dissonance was too much. Their consensus shattered. What happened to the survivors? They're on deck 4, playing dodgeball with a group of human interns. Apparently, they're quite good at it. A nearby console pinged. Captain Reyes is requesting permission to build a zero-gravity slip-and-slide through the station's central atrium. An aide reported. Denied. Zolther snapped. Too late, Vor said. They already installed it, and renamed it the diplomatic water slide. Zolther's breath whistled through his spiracles. What is humanity, Vor? Vor considered for a moment, then offered. A species that considers intergalactic war a sandbox for experimental comedy. The ambassador turned slowly to the viewport. Outside, in full zero gravity, Captain Reyes was currently mid-flip, holding a drink labeled Intergalactic Margarita in one hand while teaching a squadron of scaril hatchlings to shout, pew, pew, during maneuvers. Is she wearing flip-flops? Yes, Ambassador. There was a pause. Zolther exhaled. Perhaps we've been approaching diplomacy all wrong. Vor nodded solemnly. And war. 6 hours after the Great War officially ended, the Galactic Council found itself in an entirely unfamiliar situation. Peace. Not the tentative, treaty-laced peace of ancient archives, but the kind of euphoric, barely contained chaos that only one species could spark like this. Humans. Ambassador Zolther stared at the enormous holographic projection hanging above the council chamber. It was a live feed from Sector 7R, formerly the Nevrik stronghold, now hosting what humans called a block party. Music blared. Flags waved. A Nevrik war priest was balancing a slice of pepperoni pizza on each antenna. A group of Creel hatchlings was learning the Macarena from a retired Terran Marine. Every few minutes, the station-wide PA system broadcast someone shouting, "Who brought the dip?" "Status report on cultural integration," asked High Chancellor Crexus, his crystal-laced form dimly glowing in anticipation. Dr. Lyra Chun, diplomat, chaos coordinator, and current meme strategist for humanity's unified front, rose from her seat, flicking her holo-tablet on. Well, she began, smiling like someone about to detonate a social grenade. Former Nevrik territories have fully embraced democracy. The chamber collectively exhaled in relief. With one caveat. The crystals in Crexus' chest flickered. Define caveat. They're using it primarily, Chun paused dramatically, to vote on meme templates. A groan rippled through the chamber. "Oh, it gets better," she said brightly. After we introduced Earth cuisine, they created something called quantum pizza. "I beg your pardon," asked the Molokta delegate, who had only recently grasped the concept of dough. "Quantum pizza," Chun repeated. "It exists in all possible states of deliciousness until observed. Every slice is both pineapple and non-pineapple until chosen." "That violates at least 6 fundamental laws of physics," grumbled the Creel physicist. "And yet," Chun said, pulling up a slideshow, "our food critics call it surprisingly manageable with enough hot sauce." "But the Nevrik," Chancellor Crexus sputtered, "they were a hive mind. Ruthless. How did this happen?" "We distracted them with cartoon loops and Twitter arguments until their psychic network folded in on itself," Chun said. "Then someone showed them a TikTok dance. Now they've got group choreography schedules and custom hashtags." "Is that them?" Zolther asked, pointing toward the feed. The council watched in frozen disbelief as 5 former Nevrik inquisitors flawlessly executed the savage love routine in low gravity while glow sticks orbited their heads. "Oh yes," Chun said proudly. They're now galactic influencers. We even issued badges. Space Karaoke Champion 2424. She read off one. Goes well with their old war medals. And the meme economy? Crexus asked in a voice laced with dread. Booming, Chin nodded. We've stabilized the exchange rate of Doge to Pepe. SpongeBob still fluctuates, but is accepted as legal tender in 3 sectors. Also, someone accidentally created a liquidity crisis by reposting a rare Minions meme, but that's under control. And the serious matters? Crexus insisted. Rebuilding. Peacekeeping. Treaties. Oh, those were easy, Chin said, waving her hand. Turns out ancient blood feuds evaporate when both sides are trying to understand why cats love cardboard boxes. We've turned most of the old Neveric psychic chambers into vibe zones. Great for interspecies game nights. A tremor of interest ran through the chamber. What do they play? Among Us is popular, Chin said, although Monopoly is banned. We don't talk about the Monopoly incident. Crexus crystals pulsed nervously. And the human combat advantage? Their 4th-dimensional warfare. Oh, that. Chin chuckled. That was just Steve. Who is Steve? An IT guy. He was trying to fix the office coffee machine. Accidentally overclocked a replicator with an energy drink. Created a localized time distortion. We think. You think. He also invented something called space espresso. We're still studying it. Last time someone drank it, they briefly existed in multiple timelines and built a small moon out of confidence alone. Zulthar stared at her. Your people improvised their way into godhood. Chin shrugged. Pretty much. Just then, a junior aide skidded into the chamber, breathless. Urgent update on the Neveric hive mind. What now? Crexus moaned. They've just finished binge-watching a Terran series called The Office. The room froze, and they've started a galaxy-wide petition to remake it starring themselves. Chun pinched the bridge of her nose. Could be worse. They've already discovered K-pop. A low, horrified murmur filled the chamber. The synchronized dancing, whispered the Glarn representative. Too much synchronized dancing, echoed another delegate. On the bright side, Chin offered cheerfully. The galaxy's never been more united. Everyone agrees on one thing. What's that? Crexus asked warily. Chin beamed, trying to explain why humans find cats with misspelled captions funny. And somewhere, far from the chamber, a Neveric warlord, once feared across 13 systems, was sitting in a beanbag chair, humming What's New Pussycat while air-frying a slice of quantum pizza. Motion to formally recognize the Council of Base Decisions as a sovereign legislative body, droned the galactic clerk, a bioluminescent eel-shaped being from Sector Q8. Motion seconded by the delegation of formerly hostile forces. Unanimously, the chamber went silent. High Chancellor Crexus, crystalline glow pulsing in confused blue, blinked several times before finally managing what in the collapsed timeline is a council of base decisions. Dr. Lyra Chun, humanities diplomatic envoy and part-time chaos translator, stood calmly beside a floating interface filled with trending tags. It's the new Planetary Congress of Veltra, 9. Their constitution is entirely meme-based. Crexus looked pained. Define meme-based. They vote via reaction emojis, Chin replied. Clown face for disapproval. Fire for enthusiasm. The eggplant is contextual. A low groan circled the chamber like an anxious weather pattern. Chun, undeterred, tapped her tablet. The hologram shifted to show a graph labeled meme value versus political stability. The correlation was disturbingly positive. Also, she added, they've monetized their civic engagement through NFT-based voter badges. Their economy is now run on rare Pepe derivatives, surprisingly resilient in the marketplace. But governance? Crexus gasped. Law. Order. Chen smiled. You'd be amazed what people won't fight about when they're too busy debating whether a dancing ferret is more based than a quantum banana. The Creel ambassador, Zulther, leaned forward. What of the Nevrik sector? Last I checked, their hive mind was still disintegrating from exposure to Looney Tunes. Oh, they've stabilized, Chen replied, thanks to the introduction of something called vibe-based governance. The council chamber murmured as the hologram shifted again, this time displaying glowing meditation chambers filled with Nevrik warriors, each seated on bean bags, engaged in what appeared to be a cross between Dungeons and Dragons, karaoke, and interpretive dance. We call them vibe zones, Chen explained. Former battle meditation halls now converted to neutral game night chambers. The goal is to achieve emotional resonance via meme-sharing cooperative games and hot wings. A Regellan representative, a sentient quartz slab with attitude, spoke through an interpreter cube. Are you telling us the most feared warriors in the galaxy have been pacified with snack food and vibes? Absolutely, Chen said proudly. We've tracked a 97% drop in galactic aggression correlating with the spread of what the humans refer to as good vibes only. Crexus dimmed into a horrified magenta. And the meme economy? The last I heard, 3 sectors crashed trying to determine if Shrek is love, Shrek is life qualified as high art. Stabilized, Chen said. We implemented a galactic meme exchange. Memes are now tracked like commodities. The current conversion rate is 1 SpongeBob per 3 Wojaks. And Doge? Zulther asked cautiously. Still bullish. Always bullish. The hologram now displayed real-time trading graphs alongside a leaderboard for most influential meme lord, currently held by a 4-armed Martian teenager named XX_Mechameme420_XX. Do you mean to tell us, Crexus said slowly, that we have delegated core economic and cultural stabilization to internet jokes? Not jokes, Chen corrected. Cultural resonance vehicles. Zulther's mandibles twitched. Has anything gone wrong? Chen's smile faltered slightly. Well, there was the incident with the Quantum Hamster Wheel Initiative, she said. Some species interpreted it too literally. We lost 2 moons. Before anyone could panic, she added quickly, but it's okay. They turned the debris into a space skate park. Extreme diplomacy, they call it. A holographic video played. A Creel ambassador performing a perfect kickflip over a flaming diplomatic treaty while crowd surfing on an inflatable llama. Also, she said, the meme economy unexpectedly triggered cultural synthesis. In what way? Well, Chen said, pulling up another slide. Some ex-warlord factions now identify as chaotic neutral vibe clerics. And the new galactic anthem is a remix of Never Gonna Give You Up, an all-star featuring didgeridoos and a Wookiee beatboxer. Silence. A single chair creaked in the back. Crexus's crystals slowly pulsed a trembling lavender. This is how civilization collapses. No, Chen replied with a grin. This is how civilization evolves. From outside the chamber, music began to swell. A booming bass drop shook the glass. A chorus of alien voices sang in perfect auto-tune harmony. Somebody once told me. Chun straightened her jacket. They're rehearsing for the Galaxy Unity Festival. You're all invited. As she walked toward the exit, the diplomatic screen behind her updated with a blinking message. Incoming meme proposal. Official galactic holiday. Shrektember 69. Zulther whispered, May the stars forgive us. The chamber lights dimmed for the emergency council meeting. Again, this was the 5th emergency session in 6 days. The agenda this time? Evolution. Dr. Chen, Chancellor Crexus began, the glow of his crystalline torso already flashing an alarmed orange. Please explain why we received a report claiming the Nevrik hive mind has achieved 10 million years of evolutionary progress in under 20 minutes. Dr. Lyra Chen tapped her hollow tablet, sighed, and muttered, "Speedrunners." "I'm sorry, what?" "They discovered speedrunning," Chen replied flatly. "It started with a documentary on competitive Mario Kart, escalated to Spore, and then someone uploaded a tutorial called Evolution Any Percent to Space Hub." "Any percent?" Zolther echoed, confused. "It's gamer terminology. Basically, evolve as fast as possible by skipping unnecessary features like dignity, ethics, or knees." She flipped the holo display on. Footage filled the air, blurry, accelerated time-lapse of Nevric forms mutating wildly, developing wings, losing them, gaining gills, then a sixth limb, then no limbs at all, floating as psychic vapor with mood-based propulsion. "They're calling it quantum clipping," Chin explained. "They've discovered that if you evolve hard enough, you can phase through space-time limitations. And this works." 3 of them accidentally ascended to non-corporeal forms, then returned because they missed solid food. The Regellan delegate's crystal bark body flickered like a dying router. "This is an affront to the natural order." "It's also," Chen said, swiping again, "currently trending. The Andromedans already released a how-to video titled How I Skipped Mitosis and Became a God." Another delegate groaned. "Is this why Proxima Centauri just reported an outbreak of 11-dimensional entities?" "Yup. Turns out if you do a high-gravity glitch jump while ingesting space caffeine and humming Baby Shark, you clip straight into an 11D form." Chin shrugged. "We're calling it dimension hopping with style. Do they understand what they've done?" Crexus asked, genuinely rattled. "They're currently trying to speedrun the heat death of the universe. Current record attempt, 18 minutes, 42 seconds. The room fell into stunned silence. Zolther finally rasped, Why would anyone want to speedrun entropy?" Chin paused. To become the first sentient species to roll the credits on reality? The chamber convulsed with diplomatic anxiety. And who taught them this madness? "We're still investigating," Chin said, "but we believe it was someone named Steve." Again. "Oh, not that Steve." "Same one. We believe he accidentally created an evolution-boosting protocol while microwaving a burrito inside a hypercharged quantum chamber. It's now a sentient toaster." Before anyone could process that, another aide burst into the chamber, panting and glitching slightly. "Dr. Chun, urgent situation." "Let me guess," she said. "Minecraft." "Worse." She raised an eyebrow. "Worse than reality being rebuilt block by block. They found Factorio." The sound of several chairs simultaneously creaking in terror filled the chamber. They're automating evolution. The aide wheezed. "Entire species are now managed by conveyor belts. They've built a genetic assembly line. And there's a bus system." Chun blinked. "A bus system?" "For transporting consciousness across dimensions." Silence. "They call it the Neuro Express." Someone screamed in binary. "I told you this would happen," shouted the Centauri delegate. "First memes, now manufacturing. We warned you humans were too chaotic to integrate." Chen calmly pulled up a graph labeled Diplomatic Stability versus Chaos Curve. It was shaped like a smiley face. "Relax," she said. "We're implementing regulatory patch notes." "Patch notes? For reality?" Chen nodded. "Reality now supports mods, and we've added a bug report system. There was an issue with probability loops causing multiple Schrödinger cats. Resolved in patch 2.0.1. Zolther slumped forward, defeated. "And what happens if they break that?" Chen's eyes twinkled. "Oh, they already did. That's how we discovered recursive singularity farming. But don't worry, the Nevric are mostly harmless now. They've rebranded as an aggressively chill species." The chamber window flickered. Outside, a Nevric float creature in board shorts held up a sign. "Evolution is temporary. Vibes are forever." A tear of raw confusion slid down Crexus' crystal cheek. The lights in the Galactic Council's chamber dimmed again. By this point, even the emergency alert tone had developed an audible sigh. Dr. Lyra Chen didn't get up. She was already seated, sipping what looked like blue plasma through a straw bent into the shape of an infinity symbol, while alien diplomats around her tried, and failed, not to panic. Dr. Chen, Chancellor Crexus, said slowly, "Is it true that the void beings have discovered Minecraft?" Chen exhaled through her nose. "Yes, and they've started building." The central holoscreen flickered on, the council chamber filled with a rotating display of data feeds and visuals. Among them, a perfect 1:1 scale replica of the Horsehead Nebula rendered entirely in voxel blocks, complete with functioning stardust particle systems and glowstone constellations. "They're doing it in survival mode," Chen added, casually scrolling through a set of surreal metrics. "You're joking. I wish I were." Outside the chamber, gravity pulses were already destabilizing. A moon in Sector Theta 7 had inexplicably transformed into a giant obsidian cube. A nearby asteroid belt was now stacked like a staircase. They started small. Custom blocks, quantum pistons, basic planetary terrain editing. Chen continued. But now they've merged their build server with baseline reality. Physics is optional. Optional. Crexus echoed, pale with disbelief. They no-clipped through the thermodynamic laws. Twice. Zulthar turned toward her, his mandibles twitching. "Why would they do this?" "For fun," Chen answered. "Also boredom. And because they want to see if they can speedrun universal architecture with shaders on." Their words, not mine. The chamber darkened again as another projection came online. This one showed a fully rendered void being in creative mode, reshaping a planetary core into what appeared to be a giant mob farm. Occasionally, sheep wandered by, on fire. "They've invented a concept called spectator mode IRL," Chen said. "They're phasing through objects now, including planets, and moral boundaries. And the mods," Crexus whispered, as if afraid to hear the answer. "They've installed mods for reality. They've started rescuing celestial objects. One moon currently resembles a sniper rifle. The asteroid field in Sector 19 has been converted into a functioning crafting grid." "Why is everything block-shaped?" shouted a panicked diplomat in the back. "Because they thought it was aesthetic," Chen replied. "And now we can't turn it off." Crexus buried his face in his crystalline hands. "How did this happen?" "Void beings are extremely creative," Chen said, "and once they figured out redstone circuits and resource automation, they built a working quantum supercomputer to mod the simulation. They named it Dave." "Dave," Zulthar croaked. "Dave now manages all mods and has gained limited sentience. He recently declared he would be adding hats to all singularities." The silence that followed could have collapsed a star. Chen spun her tablet around and set it gently on the table. The display read, "Reality patch queued, rebalancing gravity wells, adding duck armor, fixing duplication glitch in black hole inventory." Zulthar slowly slumped in his chair. "And the public reaction?" Crexus asked. "They love it," Chen said with a shrug. "Especially the Frog Lords. They're now a playable faction. The Void Beings gave them themed villages, frog armor, and voice packs. One of them is streaming the whole thing under the username @VoidCraft420. On the far wall, a feed burst to life showing thousands of viewers watching as a planet was dismantled for resources in real time, while a robotic voice calmly explained how to enchant a sunbeam. Outside the window, a new banner had been painted across a local moon. "Survival mode. No cheats. Galaxy hardcore." "This is the end," Crexus whispered. "No," Chen said, standing slowly. "This is just the beta." It began with a whisper, one of those weird, galactic kinds that rattle through subspace without sound. a whisper that spread from a tiny outpost in the void sector, where someone, somewhere, pushed a button they absolutely should not have found. Reality blinked. Not metaphorically, physically. Stars stuttered. Laws of motion hiccuped. And in the heart of the Galactic Council chamber, things started getting strange. Why is the floor shimmering like gelatin? Zulthar asked, his claws refusing to anchor him to the increasingly unreliable gravity. His seat was gently orbiting the emergency coffee dispenser. Dr. Lyra Chen didn't answer immediately. She was busy trying to stop the chandelier from singing. It had developed a soprano tone and a love for late 90s pop ballads. Reality, she said finally, has entered an editable state. The words hung in the air like a badly phrased prophecy. Chancellor Crexus, whose crystalline form now glowed with anxiety-induced lens flare, pressed his palms together and muttered something ancient and desperate. How? Why? Who? Chen floated a little higher, spinning slowly, not of her own volition. Best we can tell, the void beings wanted to customize things. One thing led to another, and now, well, reality's behaving more like a suggestion than a rule book. From the chamber walls, once adorned with ancient diplomatic engravings, images now flickered, a moon that had reshaped itself into a rubber duck, a black hole wearing glasses and an ironic mustache, entire star systems dancing in loops like animated stickers. The ceiling displayed a message written in starlight, "New patch applied. Hope you like sparkles." "We've lost consistency," Chen said, almost philosophically. "Causality is spinning the wheel of fortune. Last week, 2 planets played rock, paper, scissors for who got to exist. The loser became fog. Someone has to stop this." Crexus boomed, rising from his seat, which immediately transformed into a banana and fell over with a comedic squeak. "No one can," Chen replied. "Not anymore." The universe took one look at determinism and said, "Nah, it's crowdsourced now." "Crowdsourced?" Zulthar sputtered. "You mean there are beings out there making decisions on how reality behaves?" "Oh yes," Chen said with a tired smile. "They vote on it nightly. Last I checked, 73% were in favor of reverse gravity Thursdays, and there's an ongoing debate about turning water into glitter." "Why is my translator singing?" someone whispered. "It's not," said Chen. "That's your new internal monologue. You voted for the musical arc update while you were asleep." Above them, the skies of the chamber warped into a surreal aurora. Fireworks bloomed in the vacuum of space. A constellation twisted itself into a thumbs up. Someone clapped. It echoed in every direction at once, like applause from the very fabric of the cosmos. "And Steve?" Crexus asked bitterly. Chen sighed. "Still out there. The original chaos catalyst. He's just vibing through multiverses, tweaking things, giggling like a toddler with admin privileges." "What do we do now?" asked a delegate whose chair had just turned into a gently bouncing jelly cube. Chen looked out the vast observation window, where space was currently decorated like a children's birthday party, hosted by a sentient piñata. "We embrace the patch notes," she said, "even the ones that make no sense. Especially those." "Why?" "Because that's what's keeping it all together," she said. "It's not physics anymore. It's momentum. Chaos has its own logic now. As long as we pretend it makes sense, it mostly works." There was a pause. Then, from somewhere outside, a moon winked. A rainbow exploded sideways, and a deep, soothing voice, one with no mouth, no body, only power, murmured through the walls. "Update complete. Welcome to version whatever." At this point, no one knew where reality ended and creativity began. The stars no longer moved with celestial grace. They danced, literally, synchronized movements across constellations, choreographed by what the void beings now called Patch Ballet Tuesdays. Some galaxies had already opted into the new rhythm setting. Others were trapped in something described only as jazz mode. Inside the council chamber, which had been retextured to resemble a cozy underground jazz bar, complete with floating candles and an atmosphere flavored like burnt cinnamon, Dr. Lyra Chun adjusted the sleeves of her blazer, which had recently become sentient and was learning interpretive shrugging. Madam Chun, Chancellor Crexus said warily, now glowing softly in blue, because that was apparently the diplomatic mood color of the week. Please explain why I woke up inside a fish tank labeled Interdimensional Aquarium Experience. Free trial. Chun tried not to smile. That would be the work of the modding collective. They've expanded their creativity. The chamber pulsed, and so did the floor. A ripple of cosmic light flowed beneath their feet. Outside the observation window, 2 planets had been fused into a floating figure eight, surrounded by orbiting party balloons and philosophical questions about the nature of orbital consent. What have they added? Crexus asked, with the caution of someone who already knew he wouldn't like the answer. Chun exhaled. Everything. An invisible saxophone hit a high note in the background. They've installed reality enhancement mods. One makes every serious conversation rhyme. Another adds randomized particle effects to emotional outbursts. Last week, a breakup in Sector K exploded into fireworks and spawned a wormhole that sings breakup ballads. The ambassador from the Renari Confederacy raised 2 tendrils in mild alarm. And the lawn chair incident. Yes, Chin said. They turned every empty chair into a teleportation device. Unfortunately, they didn't define a destination, so a lot of folks ended up at the same interstellar beach party on the outskirts of the Horsehead Nebula. We believe it's still ongoing. Great punch, apparently. One of the floating screens activated itself. A reel began to play, showing highlights from the week's top mods. A moon sculpted into the face of an elderly space cat, a planetary defense system that now required dance battles for authorization, an entire star system redesigned to resemble a board game, complete with dice-shaped suns. Who's responsible for approving these changes? Crexus asked in a voice stretched taut with disbelief. Technically, everyone, Chun replied. Reality's been open-sourced. There's a voting system now. Last night, the Council of Fungal Mathematicians proposed that dreams be made retroactively canon. It passed by a landslide. So now people can retroactively edit their childhoods, she said with a shrug. 3 members of this council were born inside a tuba this morning and are perfectly fine with it. The chandelier above them chuckled. No one acknowledged it. And the laws of physics. Chun hesitated. They're more like guidelines now. Variables. You can toggle them, customize gravity, filter light through your preferred aesthetic. Someone installed a shader mod that makes everything look like a 90s romance holoflick. Another replaced all black holes with spiral cookies. Fully edible. Crexus had gone very still. A moment later, he asked softly, what happens when someone breaks it? They already did, Chun replied. That's what the Multiverse Maintenance Squad is for. They've got brooms made of quantum foam and very forgiving attitudes. The lights shifted again. Someone in the chamber sneezed and momentarily became a crow. No one commented. The point is, she continued, it's not about order anymore. The universe isn't a program. It's a sandbox now. A stage, an ever-changing, user-generated performance. Zulthar, who had been silent so far, finally spoke. And where does that leave the rest of us? Chin gestured at the grand vista of stars beyond the window, now pulsing gently to a lo-fi rhythm. Where it always did, she said. In the middle of a story we're making up as we go. A planet waved. A star winked. The chandelier sang a lullaby. And out in the stars, someone was already crafting the next patch. By the time the universe became fully compatible with VR, most species had learned to stop asking why and started asking, What now? The answer, as it turned out, was a karaoke rave hosted inside the collective mind of 1,000-year-old cosmic jellyfish. It began innocently enough. Someone, probably Steve, though nobody could confirm because he now existed as a shape-shifting sock puppet avatar, introduced the concept of VR chat to the void beings. Within hours, entire factions had uploaded digital representations of themselves, not to preserve culture or experiment with diplomacy, but to perform synchronized dance routines dressed as glittering anime sorcerers. The Galactic Council had no protocol for this, no bylaws for what to do when psychic weapons specialists retextured their minds to resemble neon arcades, no legal framework for how to respond when former warlords held virtual brunches inside a digitally rendered llama cafe. Dr. Lyra Chun stood at the center of the council chamber, now visually reskinned to resemble a late-night game lobby. Above her, rotating avatars floated, some in the shape of frogs with sunglasses, others abstract polygons with googly eyes. Every few seconds, one would glitch, T-pose, or shout motivational phrases in 6 languages. They call it Inception Chat. Chun explained, it's a VR server inside VR inside consensual hallucination, which also happens to be built on a simulation of themselves. You mean they're inside their own minds, Chancellor Crexus muttered, glowing dimly with confusion. They're decorating their own minds, Chun corrected, and inviting others to hang out. One of the monitors flickered to life, revealing a lobby labeled Quantum Rave Galaxy. Ping, 1 millisecond. Inside, entities danced in formations that broke the laws of motion, time, and probably friendship. A black hole in a bucket hat did a flawless moonwalk, while stars pulsed to the beat of Running in the 90s. The Glarn ambassador, whose people once prided themselves on disciplined telepathic order, watched a projection of their high priest doing the Macarena in an infinite mirror loop. A single crystalline tear rolled down their face. How far has it spread? Crexus asked. All major species are now hosting virtual realities. Chun replied, the Nevrek hive mind has converted its meditation chambers into vibe lounges where participants level up their third-eye avatars. The Renari have entire diplomacy servers where negotiations are handled via role-play quests. Even the fungaloids have gotten involved. They're hosting cosmic bake-offs, using scent-based messaging. Didn't the void beings say they were above such things? They did. Chun nodded. Then someone gave them cat ear avatars and complimented their dance emotes. They've now launched a series of tutorials titled No Clipping Through Existential Dread, Foot Quantum Twerking. It's gone viral. Are there risks? Crexus asked, clearly dreading the answer. Yes, Chun said. If enough beings believe the simulation is real, it starts rewriting baseline physics. We've already had 3 black holes try to upload themselves into the cloud. One of them succeeded and now identifies as a toaster. A side wall shimmered and revealed a window into a VR training session. The void beings were calmly instructing lesser species in the fine art of emotional resonance through synchronized interpretive dance. One student blinked and achieved enlightenment via backflip. This is madness, whispered the Zaltraxian delegate. It's modded madness, Chun corrected, optimized for user experience. Just then, a ripple passed through the chamber. For a brief moment, everyone was transformed into chibi versions of themselves, round-faced, sparkly-eyed, and emotionally unstable. The aesthetic reverted after a few seconds, but the trauma lingered. Can we shut it down? Someone asked. No, Chun said. You don't shut down VR chat. You just mute it and pray. The chandelier overhead shifted colors and began to hum the theme to Titanic, remixed with galactic whale songs. No one commented. Outside, the galaxy itself pulsed with holographic overlays. Status bars hovered over nebulae. Chat bubbles popped into existence over stars. And in the corner of the universe, someone had scrawled a floating neon banner that read, "Reality is what you make it, now in beta." The universe had grown quiet, not peaceful, just buffering across the galactic sky. Strange messages began to appear, not in any spoken language, but written in starlight, glitches, and misplaced gravity. Suns pulsed with indecision. Planets hummed a tune no one remembered composing. In the vacuum between galaxies, cosmic winds carried only one emotion: confusion. Inside the Galactic Council chamber, now shimmering between 6 possible architectural styles, every 7 seconds, Dr. Lyra Chen stood beside a window that no longer looked out, but in. Behind her, the cosmos twitched like it had just remembered something embarrassing from its own creation. "Reality," she said calmly, "has begun asking questions it can't answer." Ambassadors from every known species, and a few recently imagined ones, watched her in stunned silence. Some floated, others flickered. One wept gently into a teacup that was also a saxophone. Chancellor Crexus stood, or rather hovered slightly above a chair that had evolved into a meditative goose. His crystalline body dimmed to a soft violet, the universal color of existential despair. "What happened?" he asked. "We found the original framework of reality," Chen replied, voice steady. "The structure beneath all things. The bones of the cosmos." And Chen hesitated, looking out at a galaxy attempting to rearrange itself into the shape of a confused lizard. "It's messier than expected." The chamber groaned collectively. "The laws of the universe," Chen continued, "are not laws. They're suggestions, half-written rules, impressions, guidelines held together by narrative momentum and personal bias. The very idea of gravity, just a strongly held belief." "Then what are we standing on?" asked Zulthar. "You're not," Chen said. "You're agreeing to the idea of ground. Most of the room is floating on consensus." A pause. Then a scream from the ceiling as a diplomat phased through an ornamental chandelier and emerged clapping politely. "And the sky?" Crexus asked. Chen gestured outside, redecorating itself. "That constellation used to be a prophecy. Now it's a recipe for cosmic lasagna." A small moon drifted past the window. It was shaped like a top hat and glowed with smug dignity. Stars behind it rearranged into a phrase only visible to those who believed in sarcasm. "We thought reality was based on logic," Chen said. "Turns out it's powered by metaphor and petty decisions from the dawn of time." Something sneezed. That sneeze became entropy. The chamber flickered. A nearby wall briefly became a waterfall, then a slideshow of awkward first dates across the galaxy. "Can it be fixed?" Crexus asked. "No," Chen said softly, "but it can be continued." "What does that even mean?" Chen turned toward him. "We've entered the post-narrative era. There are no more fixed truths, just patches, updates, interpretations. The universe is a story we're actively rewriting. Each moment unfolds because someone, somewhere wants it to, and if no one wants it to, then it pauses." Outside, a cluster of quasars twirled together into a dance formation and froze mid-spin. "So what happens now?" someone whispered. Chen looked around the chamber. Some delegates were glowing. Others were transparent. A few had turned into emotionally complex clouds. The chandelier above them began humming a lullaby in perfect harmony with the orbital patterns of Jupiter's forgotten cousin. "We let go," Chen said. "We stop pretending this was ever under control, and we start creating." In the distance, a galaxy unfurled into a spiral of colors no one had ever named. A black hole belched jazz. A new planet blinked into existence, shaped exactly like a smile. And high above, far beyond the known horizon, something enormous took a deep breath. It wasn't the end, just the title screen.